once again, this is Bob Fopp, and this is the Outdated Entertainment Hour. Please have a seat, won't you? Be civilized. We have a special guest and a radio personality, Glen Braget. And together, he and host Bob Smith, we're going to look at who they feel are serious omissions from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Rock and roll again. We're having just all the kinds of rock and roll on the show, and there's more to come, I'm led to believe. Hey, whatever happened to Ford Jackson and Jill? Whatever happened to Vic Dana? No, not Vic Damone, Vic Dana. Get a history book, children. Well, I'm off course now. In any event, here it comes. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame discussion on the Outdated Entertainment Hour. No gum chewing. Well, welcome back, everybody. My name's Bob Smith, and this is the Outdated Entertainment Hour podcast. Thanks for coming back. We really appreciate it. We have a great guest once again. We welcome back for the third time, I believe. It's Glen Braget, and we're going to talk about ridiculous omissions from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I really gave my list a lot of thought, so did Glenn, and I can't argue with any of them. I think the HOF has, and by the way, if you ever get a chance to go to Cleveland, to go to the actual building, do it. It's one of the great attractions in America. It really is. I cannot put them down for that. However, I personally think there's not enough rock and roll in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, meaning rock, you know? So we're going to get into all that, and we're going to get into a few other topics as well. Hunker down. We're going to have a really nice conversation here, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on who you think a very serious omission from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame may be. Right to us at outdatedent, that's outdatedent at gmail.com. And I do want to apologize. I haven't even been in that mailbox in a while. I just answered some people who wrote. Forgive me for that. There's no excuse, but I'm super busy. I really have been. The two podcasts, life, I'm still with a sports media company. Life has been... Well, at my age, I should be very thankful I'm as busy as I am, you know. And busy music never lets me go. I was a performer, as you know, on stage for years in the blues realm, and I love rock and roll too. So we're going to take a look at all that with Glenn. Give us a couple of minutes. We have a legend about to speak to you. I believe you should listen to what he has to say. And you know what? I think what he's talking about is very important in the calendar year 2025. Seriously. So it may sound archaic what he's about to say. I think we ought to go get one of these things. What is it? Well, find out right here.
This is Joe Walsh. One thing I do when I'm not playing rock and roll is get on the air as an amateur radio operator. Also called ham radio, is a communication service provided by ordinary people just like you and me. We have a national emergency communication system in place 24/7, 365. Find out more about amateur radio at arrl.org/What is ham radio? See you on the air.
It's time for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And who isn't in it? We're going to have a little debate here, a little fun. We're going to look at artists who somehow, I don't want to call them snubs or omissions. They're just not voted in yet. So we're going to look into this right now. And to do so, I have a Hall of Fame radio broadcaster in my eyes. He works for KSRQ, Pioneer 90.1 Radio Minnesota. He's a real radio pro. He's all over the station. And on Sunday with Mike McCurdy, he does a show called Wrestling Memories. One of my favorite guests, I will be admitting it, both him and Mike. This time we have Glen Braget. Welcome back.
Oh, it's good to be back, man. Last time we got together, we were talking about the wonderful SCTV, and boy, we could have had that conversation going for longer than the time limit had allowed us. But man, it's always good to have you on the program, on our program, but it's always good to be on your program as well. So, man, thank you for having me on. And this is a topic that is definitely one I definitely love getting engaged into conversation with. And definitely when we talked about getting this to play, I was all in, and it's finally coming to fruition. It's going to be fun today, man. Let's ride.
And right before we do start, I want to give props, and I'm serious about this, to Pioneer 90.1 Radio Minnesota. That, my friends, is a radio station. This is a real American radio station, the way it used to be, local programming, a lot of local feel, variety of different hosts and topics and music themes. I got to give you guys credit. That's a real old-fashioned radio station, and I want people to hear it no matter where they live in the United States and Canada. It's really good.
Well, man, and since we started, the community radio thing, since when the broadcast program went down here in Thief River Falls at the college, we started this Pioneer 90.1 revolution. And through the years, yes, we have built up a really good, solid fan base, listener base. And that comes with, doing something that sometimes other public stations don't do. I mean, we play lots of great music, lots of variety, lots of stuff. And the one thing we don't do, and I think this is something that we've kept to and we will continue to keep to until the day we decide, or whoever decides, they decide to shut the thing down. We don't do politics, man. And I find that to be refreshing because that keeps us out of a lot of fires, man, that we don't need to be walking into or need to even be starting on our end. We keep it the open-ended. It's a community thing. We have developed talents from the community. We to make programs through the years. It's really, really a great vibe, and it's fun. We put on concerts every Tuesday in the park here in town. We do things. We're getting more with the outreach with the community. There's a lot of growth there, and I think a lot of growth comes when we avoid talking about things that instantly create division. We're not here for division, man. We're here to dance and boogie and get to enjoy your life for once in a while with some pleasant distraction.
Fantastic. I'm hooked on you guys, and I'm hooked on a radio station in Santa Fe, New Mexico right now. I still love radio, and thank goodness for streaming and stuff like that. So I want to point people to radionorthland.org. Isn't that the right way where other people who might be interested would want to check it out?
Absolutely. That's one of the avenues you can explore. Also, we have a community radio app you can get wherever you get your apps for your phone, wherever. It's the community radio app. It has the main channel, and it has 3 other of our channels that we have on the HD service. We are an eclectic station, Bob. Let me tell you something. We have a classic hits channel. We have a polka channel.
Yes.
We have a polka old time flavored channel, and we are proud of it. That's one of our a station that continues to grow for us. And we also launched a thing called, you've heard everybody drop that term, the GOAT, for everything. It's like, oh yeah, that's the GOAT. You could even eat a piece of cheese and you call it the greatest thing you ever had. But we have the BOAT. It's the best of all time. Classic country, all the way from like the early, like the mid to late 50s into like the early 90s. We cover a lot of a swath of that before country became a little too Southern pop like it is today. So we represent a lot of nostalgia, but we still have a lot of current product too. We like to be a little everything for everyone. So if one part of the day, the dish isn't good enough for you, you probably will find something you like tasty maybe a little bit later on in the day. That's kind of the vibe of what we do.
I don't want to hear anybody besmirching polka music, and I'll tell you why. When I was a musician on the road, we would play everywhere. And I remember one time we were into the heart of rural Pennsylvania at one point, passing through, where we had our assigned hotel rooms, the club provided for us to play. It was a little bit out of town, but it was free. And we flip on the TV, and there's the polka hour. And, the first thing I'm thinking, boy, this is just like the Schmengies. But then as I'm watching it, I'm watching a variety of people of all ages having a good time dancing on the polka floor. And I'm like, you know what? This is great. We all sat there watching it, and none of us were, like, making fun of it, or we were fascinated by the fact that there was even a polka television show at this point. And after that, I researched and realized there's probably about 25 of them around the United States that are still regularly aired, polka television shows,
Oh,
hosted
absolutely.
by a local band, and everybody gets on the dance floor, has a good time. That, my friends, is soul.
Oh,
I don't care what kind of music it is. If you're that much into it, that this is your main advocation, uh, music is the food of life, play on. That's all I have to say.
it's got feel, man. And was that there was a polka? There's a big polka thing in Pennsylvania, but wasn't there a few years ago? Netflix put out a film. I think it was Jack Black. I cannot remember I think it was Jan Levon, the Polka King,
Mhm.
and he had some sort of grift with. He ended up in like traveling, selling these traveling packages to the Vatican. He had this gift shop. He had all kinds of stuff, because usually with a polka group, they come connected with a travel agency or different things because they have these packages where they take people to Branson or wherever else. But he got in so deep, he was taking people to the Vatican. I think even getting an audience with the Pope. It's Polka King. Jack Black plays him. It's very interesting. Jack really got into the role too. Learning the polka and stuff. That was a great fit. Because he's so that guy he's so open to doing stuff, even especially with music. So it was a good flick. I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but it might be worth checking out if you haven't.
Well, Glenn, you've got my creative juices flowing now, and I'm telling you right now, if I can find an expert in the field, I will do an outdated entertainment hour about polka. I will. I think it's worth doing. I think it's a fascinating, musical lineage and history, and I think it's worth investigating it and finding out more about it. I would definitely do that. So who knows what I'll come up with for this silly thing,
Okay,
but
hey,
it is
hey, and who knows, Bob? You might even nominate Myron Florin into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You never know.
Myron Florin, yes, or the Schmengies, one or the other. So,
There we go.
by the way, the last polka, if you can find it out there in streaming land, it's the funniest. It is one of the funniest TV. I believe it was on Cinemax originally. It is one of the funniest comedy specials of all. You see, Glenn is laughing just remembering it, and it stars John Candy and Eugene Levy as Yashin Stan the Schmengies, and it's an amazing. It's a laugh for a solid hour. I am telling you, it's one of the great unknown comedy specials ever. The Last Polka, you got to check it out. Am I right about this?
Oh, I 100% endorse everything you've said about it. It is so hilarious. I'm gonna have to go dig in and watch it again because I remember when I first found it on YouTube. I was sending links to people that I knew loved SCTV, and they were just raving like, I didn't even know this existed.
Yeah.
So wonderful.
Yes, it's a perfect hour, 90 minutes, whatever it is. It's just so funny. All right, here we go. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Cleveland. And by the way, if you have an opportunity to go. You will enjoy it. It is a standalone museum. It's expansive. It's got a lot of great stuff there. Have you ever been there, Glenn?
Absolutely. I went there a
And
few years ago, and it was like, yes, please, I've been waiting for this all my life type of thing. I loved it. The things, the exhibits, just seeing the building itself gives you a sense of goosebumps because,
yes.
for a guy like me up here in Nosebleed, Minnesota, we drove on out there. It was part of our trip on which we went, we called it our rock and roll road trip, where we ended up first stopping in Chicagoland area to see Jeff Lindsay LO. Then we ended up going to the Football Hall of Fame in Canton. And then we did a back over into Cleveland for a couple of nights, and we went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And that's, where the football stadium is next to it. We ended up getting $5 tickets to a football game, which is another story altogether. But the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, man, I could have it was it came in with four other people. If it was just me and another buddy, we probably would have been there another extra hour, hour and a half. The place just
Mm.
takes your breath away. The displays, the costumes, the history, man. The gift
Yes.
shop that takes your money instantly. You don't even have to. You just look at things and your wallet gets lighter. It's so beautiful.
Let me tell you a story about my visit to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This was different, and you're gonna be jealous. All right, dig this. So I used to be the blues music department chairman for the Association for Independent Music, which previously was known as NAIRD, and I can't remember what the acronym stands for. It's been 30 years or 20 years, whatever it is. But I had started my own label when I was starting to be a blues musician, and eventually got signed to another label. Now, for some reason, they voted me the chairman of all the blues labels, and we had a meeting every year, and I would be the chairman of it, and I would talk to Bruce Eaglauer from Alligator Records and all the other heads of all the blues, and we would compare and contrast and have a really nice conversation about what each label was doing. It was a great organization. I don't even know if it's still around, the Association for Independent Music. But one year we decided to have our annual convention in Cleveland. They closed the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame after 5 p.m. and gave it to us. All of us conventioneers, all of us AFM members got to see the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in private.
Oh my!
Can you imagine? And it started with a full lavish dinner in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame itself. And then we met a few of the musicians who were associated with it, and then we had the whole place to ourselves. I will never forget it. It was wonderful. It was really great.
Oh, I could have just. I'm just sitting here envious, just sitting in my chair, just wishing I could have something like that go down. But man, wow!
Yeah.
I mean, for anyone who hasn't gone there, I mean, and it's just it is what it is. Forget about how these people induct the artists and the acts and all of that politics and rigmarole that goes with the Rock Hall sometimes, and we are going to get into that too. Just remember what it is. What it is. It's a building. Wrestling, WWE don't have no damn building. And
That's
they keep
right.
talking about this Hall of Fame, much ballyhooed. This is a site. This has got so many decades and so many artists that have contributed their stuff and have brought stuff in. And you go in there and it takes your breath away. I mean, you could be a fan of one act and you'll find that to be awesome, but you'll just find the whole thing and the pinball machines to be amazing.
Yeah, and you talked about seeing it's not just Rock and Roll Hall of Famers; it's the whole story of rock and roll. That's what I like about it. It's inclusive. Like you'll see Paul Cotton of Poco's stage wear. He's not a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer yet, right? They haven't inducted Poco, but you will see that because it was a part of they had like an Americana display or country rock display with all the famous country rock musicians stage outfits, hats and boots and what have you. Guitars, you name it. And one of the other favorite things I found there was the listening area where you could listen to classic rock and roll radio stations from around the country and around the world. You put a pair of headphones on and you could still hear Cousin Brucey at WABC in New York and other great stations and,
Murray the K.
Murray the K. That's exactly what I was trying to think of right there. It was just a fabulous time and I'll never forget going there. And I've been thinking lately about going back, to be honest with you.
Well, you can flee to the Cleve any old time, huh? You just got to find that any old time.
That's exactly right. Okay. Well, anyway, it's talking about the Hall of Fame. Now, it's always a good bar room or even sitting around the table at night having your dinner. Who's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that should be there? Mm-hmm. Now, this is all opinion and it's all meant in fun. I'm not going to besmirch the organization anyway. There's just some omissions that I feel should be in there because my little list is comprised of musicians who I felt had a big influence not only on the charts or as a concert attraction, but on other following musicians, people who kind of dug what they did and got into the music business and did a similar thing. Influential artists, I would say.
Yeah. Some who, kind of get forgotten because of the people that were influenced by them, sort of a thing, that happens a lot, That's then they become more of a cult thing sometimes. And then we are here to talk about acts that we feel that are deserving of the cut. And Bob, where do we begin? Where do we want?
Let's begin with you, and let's see if either of us come up with the exact same artist. So this will be fun. You go ahead and just peddle me a name, and we'll go from there.
I'm going to start in the 1960s. I'm going to start. This gentleman had a string of hits. This man was pop radio. This man is still out on the road. I mean, this man survived Morris Levy at Roulette Records. His life story should still be made into a motion picture. I'm talking about the one and only, and he's coming up to our area still to a local casino this fall, Tommy James.
Okay.
I know. I know. You thought we were going to come out with some 70s firepower, but Tommy James, I mean, think about some of the acts that have been on the radio like him. And there's a lot of hits that he came out with, and he was much bigger than a lot of people could imagine. And it's kind of funny when I was chatting with him. He was one of the things that was funny that he, I think he ended up going to Hawaii instead of playing Woodstock.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. And when you read in his, if you've read his book, yeah,
No, I have not.
oh, it's a pretty quick read, but it's really really good. I mean, it's one of those that's engaging and it gets you locked in. But the stuff that he ended up getting under contract with Morris Levy, you talk about the record industry and the big men, the influence of organized crime. There were situations in Tommy's life where he was rather fearful for his life, where this Morris Levy would put him in these predicaments, and how he probably didn't get a lot of he probably had made a lot more money than had been indicated, and it was a lot of that too, trying to get money from Morris. I mean, could you imagine? I mean, and it was a case in the music industry for a lot, in a lot of cases, the mob influence, but the story of Morris Levy and Tommy James. It's very, very fascinating stuff. And I think that Tommy James, I mean, turn on that radio, you still hear his stuff. He has covered, people have covered him through the years as well. I mean, and had great success with his music. I mean, Billy Idol's version of Moni Moni, that became such a big 80s thing. You had pop star Tiffany. We went to the mall with Tiffany. I mean, and even some of his later 60s, early into early 70s, I think his last big hit was what? I mean, he had a hit in the early 80s, but it was kind of towards the bottom of the top 40. But Dragging the Line was probably his last big hit. But in that run, he was big. And in fact, I think he ended up, him and the band did fundraisers for Hubert Humphrey when he was running for president as well. So he's got a very interesting history. I think his story would be good. I think he has earned that right to get into the Hall just from that pop standpoint, because, he did have that pop rock stranglehold for a while. He and other groups like, say, the Turtles kind of fall into that certain category of falling through the cracks of the years. But I would give the rub to Tommy James. He's tried and true.
Okay, I like your pick. Let's stick with the 60s. All right. I'm gonna introduce you to one of the early proponents of the jilted girlfriend vocalist. There were a lot of them in the 60s. They all had their hearts broken. And who had their hearts broken more than Leslie Gore? Think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
She was kind of the first of the "It's My Party" and "I'll Cry If I Want To." Right? I mean, and other hits of that same ilk, the jilted girlfriend lead singer, and everybody could, and she sold a boatload of records. And I think her influence just kept on going into the 80s in terms of, female pop singer. Now I'm talking pop here, not necessarily rock and roll. But would there have been a Tiffany or a Debbie Gibson without a Leslie Gore? I don't think so. I think this is somebody who could sing a song about dating, or or my parents won't let me go out with you to the drive-in. Those kind of, if you ever heard her albums, there were all songs like that.
Love almost within reach. Love almost within reach. But I can't, or you find yourself in a bad situation. How much, how do people feel? Not just female, but male, feel empowered with the "You Don't Own Me." That song about finding your own self-worth, and sometimes the darkest of situations. It was simple, straight to the point, but boy, does that message still sting today.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think she was I can't think of an earlier proponent of the female pop star who sang rather personal, angsty songs with a swinging beat behind it.
Quincy Jones was producing those records.
Is that right?
Yeah. That was one of those things where, again, I was reading or saw, it must have been a documentary or something, but Quincy Jones was one of his major early, successes in the pop world was via Leslie Gore.
Amazing.
The power of the cue, my friend.
Yeah, so I'm going to stick with that choice. That one may be controversial, but no, I thought about it for a long time. And I also read about how other female singers held her in such esteem. And I just said, you know what, that's an interesting choice. I'll put it this way. You look at somebody like Nina Simone, who's the Bill Mazeroski of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Right? I mean, no choice has ever been more, as the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame veers farther and farther for anything could be considered rock and roll.
Yeah.
I don't think it's out of the question to induct a Leslie Gore in that regard. So that's just the way I feel about it.
No, dude. I'm with you all the way on that. Okay.
All right. Give me another one, Jackson.
Oh, well, I'm going to bounce out of the 60s. I'm going to fall into the 70s. And this band was a lean, mean touring machine, not necessarily meaning they sold a boatload of albums, but they kept making great records in the 1970s. But until they finally started to see the light of day with a new record company by the end of the decade, moved into the early 80s, they found themselves with MTV success. They were flush with it for a while. And of course, the way things go, ego and all of that got in the way, and the front man was out, and the band ended up being kaput for a while. There have been reunions every once in a while. This man's done solo stuff, the lead singer. I'm talking about the man who grew up in New York, but became known for being a Boston transplant, a former radio personality, Mr. Peter Wolf and the Jay Giles Band. Because, man, when you think about a swinging, traveling rock band, this was it in the 70s. You're talking a group that, okay, think about this. They were not making these big million-selling records, but they could go to like certain venues in the country, because this was the power of sometimes rock and roll radio. They could go to a Pine Knob and, outside Detroit and sell that place out multiple nights. But then you can go into another market and they're probably opening for somebody else, or they're like second or third on a bill, but with the Winterland or something like that. It was just how interesting that certain rock meccas picked up on what the Jay Giles Band was doing. But at the time, I listened to these records, being, because I was not around for this, but listening to it, I'm like, this is some good stuff. But then again, you got to think about the rock and roll atmosphere at that time, the landscape. There were so many other great, great groups that I think this one really did fall through the cracks commercially until, Love Stinks, then moving into Freeze Frame. And, and then that window got small for them. But there was that great success at the end where they were able to break even. And then Peter Wolf did his solo stuff. And he has a wonderful book, by the way, that just came out here at the beginning of the year. But I think the Jay Giles Band, because that's a band. That's a wrecking machine. I saw them during one of their reunions that they did a few years ago, and it was in Atlantic City at the Tropicana. They were fantastic. Peter Wolf still got the pipes. Peter Wolf is still moving around. I don't know what they jolted into him before the show, but he's a rock and roll showman. He's got that frontman type of thing. I think it's just because the sales weren't good in the 70s didn't mean that it was from lack of quality. They still managed to keep scrapping and surviving, and they did find their success. But ultimately, for a dues-paying rock and roll band, this is it. They could make a movie about this group, or they could put it on a mini series about a group like this. How they finally found their pot of gold. But that's where I'm saying, I love all those records, man. That's the thing, because I like the harmonica playing a Magic Dick, man. That is great when he gets in on it. I mean, they know how to effectively use that harmonica, and they're live recordings. 2 live records are fantastic. Full House, Blow Your Face Out. These are fantastic records. This is stuff that sounds still good. You put it on, you drop the needle on this stuff. It is good. At least in this guy's opinion. There could be somebody go, what the hell is he talking about? Jay Giles Band for me.
You're uncovering a subgenre of rock and roll from the 60s that doesn't get talked about at all. The big swinging R&B influenced rock and roll band. The women would swoon, the guys would dance, and it was balls to the wall in live performance every single time. There were a lot of bands like that. Jay Giles was one of them. Early Three Dog Night was one of them. All right, when they were forming their deal, they were doing covers of other people's material, but they were much heavier before they discovered themselves as an AM, an AM hit machine. Do you know that Three Dog Night had 24 consecutive top 40 hits? 24 consecutive releases.
And the argument can be made for them too, as well.
I'm making the argument right now.
Yes,
I think they should be there. I think they should be there, along with Jay Giles. These bands cut their teeth on the road as big, swinging, gritty. I wouldn't say they were just soulful R&B rock and roll. I don't know how else to describe it. And every show, one song would lead right into another, right? And it was just nonstop dancing and music and sweating. And Jay Giles, too many people confuse the centerfold Jay Giles don't even know about early Jay Giles, which was, like I said, a dominant live act. I give you props for that one. That is a great pick.
That's a full breathing, eating, spitting rock and roll machine, man. That's the stuff I wish I would have been a little bit older, would have grown up in the 70s, because a lot of my money probably would have went to places. I probably would have been broke every week if there were shows like that coming down the pipe.
I mean, even someone like Edgar Winter put a band together called Edgar Winter's White Trash, which was very similar to Jay Giles in terms of you just hear a bass run, dum 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 dum, and the song would last 18 minutes, and the vocals would be screaming and howling, and it would be, oh man, you could feel the sweat when they on these albums. It's and you know what? If I were like you said, those live albums would be my primer for them. But you're great. That shows you what they really were in live performance.
Oh, I 100%, I'm with you too on that, because, uh, Three Dog Nights captured live at the LA Forum is a great live record. I mean, that's another one from their back catalog. Yeah, this was a group too. It's like it was one of those that just, again, like Jay Giles' band had fallen through. It's every year I was wondering, like, and then I started, I grew up and got more into Three Dog Nights albums and stuff, and I'm realizing, and all the magnitude of all their hits, like they don't even get a sniff near that, even
No.
consideration. And that is really criminal. And that's again, things like that, the overlooks, things like that through the years have really, really put a black mark as far as certain fans go, and us that we talk about this, we debate about this. It kind of makes us a little sour towards, whenever the list comes out, to a degree, like, oh, we may love some of the guys and the gals and the acts on there, but there's always the what about this or what about that. Three Dog Night has been that what about this, what about that act on this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame consideration thing ever since they became eligible after that 25-year threshold.
Mhm. And you know what else is true about them? They actually made an album called Seven Separate Fools. You know why? It was a seven-man band. It was more than just the three singers. They had a tremendous live act with Floyd Sneed on drums and Mike Alsop on guitar. They were a really good live act.
Mm-hmm.
And toured and filled arenas for the whole time they were having those hits. So I don't know what to say. I don't know who they harmed. I think some people, it's just pop, it's just pop. I don't agree with that. Pop is
No.
part of rock. And I just think they get snubbed. They were also, what was it, Danny Hutton, right?
Yep.
Um,
Corey Wells,
Corey Wells, and
Chuck Negron.
right. They could all sing their asses off. Like I said, that was like an old-time, almost gospel-y R&B review when they started out, and they were all great singers. And you know what? They also brought the music of many great songwriters into the forefront, like young people at the time, like Randy Newman and Dominic Triano and Hoyt Axton, and go down the list.
Harry Nilsson, Elton
Harry
John.
Nilsson. Yeah. I mean, it was like they covered people that nobody had heard yet. And then a lot of those people went on to become stars. I don't know what to say other than Three Dog Night. Not only are they underrated, I think they're important, a big part of the 70s, at least the first half of the decade. And I don't know what to say other than they should be there. No question about it. Are you kidding me?
Is it just an optics thing? I don't know what the hell the thinking is on that.
I don't either.
They branded them something and put them over to this side, and like they've forgotten them. Whether you like this band or not, I mean, this was the American Power Trio out of Flint, Michigan, that sometimes gets a lot of flack because, we're talking, love them or hate them, love them or hate them. They were a big thing and they're heavy rock, simple or whatever you want to describe it as, for many years from the 70s there. Grand Funk Railroad, and then they shortened it to Grand Funk because too many words. But Grand Funk Railroad they came out like blazing. Those first few albums, they were blazing. They were going to be the next Cream, and they had really good momentum too when they were still, 1969. The outdoor festival scenes were out there. They ended up playing at a big festival, opening up, and everything kind of just blew up for them. And, they had their battles with their former manager, Terry Knight, where they lost so much money. If they would have just waited out the last part of the deal, they probably would have been in a better situation. But they had to rebuild. They had to be what one of their albums was titled, that Phoenix. And they came back, with We're an American Band and Locomotion and things like that. Again, some of the stuff could be a little questionable after a while. But when you think about some of these groups that get in, Grand Funk isn't that big of an impossibility as it used to be. because this is a band that does have cred. Not exactly. Sometimes they get they get the stink. But this was a band that played Shea and sold out Shea quicker than the Beatles. And they
Well,
had that place rocking with Humble Pie that night. But again, like him or hate him, because this is a very contentious one. I know that right from the start.
well, I have a reason why I think it's contentious. First of all, I want to say hello, Dennis, my brother. Grand Funk Railroad was his favorite band in the world. He loved Grand Funk for the minute. I think he thought he looked a little bit like Mark Farner, and he was a performer too. My brother, he's a bass player.
Like,
And I think he just saw himself in Mark Farner and loved them for that. And he loved that band. He just loved them. He was always coming out of his bedroom. I could hear it across the hallway. But I think what a lot of people held against Grand Funk, and probably still do to this day, is something archaic. They pushed that band so hard. Capitol Records put so much money into billboards and cities and other huge, the colored vinyl records. And they always, you have to admit, they always had a gimmick. They always had something that propelled their name out in front, even as people had never heard of them. And I think that was held against them. I think it was very anti-rock and roll to be that blatantly commercial in that era. And I think it was legitimately held against them. And I think that's the stigma that has followed them around to this day.
it's kind of like it's almost touching sticks with that teen idol, beefcake sort of area and stuff that kind of hampered Peter Frampton later on too, after the Frampton Comes Alive stuff, because again, they forgot what a competent musician he was in the story that he, the road he walked career wise, with the Herd and, Humble Pie, and then finding his way through his solo stuff, working with Frampton's Camel, good. But it wasn't hits until that album, the live album, dropped. And then after that, it became these covers of him were always with the shirt off, always with this and that. And he became a marketing tool, again, for the ladies and the teen girls and stuff, where I think people forgot the extent of his talent because he was like getting put in the Sean Cassidy, Leif Garrett type of stuff, where people are forgetting the content. They're just seeing the fluff of what has been created by way of the magazines, of the Tiger Beats and all of that. And even the Rolling Stones magazines and stuff, that marketing of the sex symbol rock star that sometimes goes really flat after a while. And it did for Peter Frampton. Think about the post album I'm In You. Initially, the title track was all right, did okay. But after that, he was in a backward struggle. I think it was because that, the I'm In You album, and the making that movie of the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Yes.
All of this was just like, took that momentum, and it took him years. He was still making albums. There was records still being put out by Peter in the late 70s into the 80s. They weren't bad. It just didn't have any sort of oomph behind it.
No.
There wasn't a lot of promotion. If you can remember, I mean, you were in the record business, record stores, Bob. Do you remember any of the Peter Frampton stuff as far as like how much of a demand that was post Frampton Comes Alive, post Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band?
You know what? Frampton Comes Alive always sold, even into the 80s. I'm telling you, I remember being stocked up on it was always on my wall, no matter what store. You know how you had the wall of records when you walk in? It was always on the wall. It was perennial. It was considered one of the great, double record sets of all time, and it sold and sold and sold and sold. We would order 5 copies of his new records and order cases of Frampton Comes Alive. I rest my case.
That's telling you everything right there about just how that really went down the tubes for him. But again, I like that he found his feet in the 90s.
Yes, he fought it out, and you know what? He's held in very high esteem now, and that's what's important. I think, is he in the Hall of Fame?
I believe so. I believe he finally got in here.
I think he got in there. Yeah, so it's not all doom and gloom for him, but yes, he got unfairly. You know something? Sometimes you do what management and agents tell you to do, and it's not always the best advice. I think he got some bad advice along the way.
Well, wasn't he managed for a while by D. Anthony? I mean, D. Anthony had a lot.
Not even sure. I can't say that with any confidence that he was.
Yeah, I think he was working with D. Anthony for a lot of years as well, and then I think he had suffered a car accident too. So he had all these just bad luck things that happened after that initial wave. Like all that success, like just totally shifted him, unfortunately, because I've gone back and listened to some of those albums in the early 80s, and they're pretty good. I mean, nothing that pops out. Consistency is an all right thing, but I could tell that those weren't going to be destined for anything big, but just something that's in the discography.
Well, here is the beauty part. For real music fans, it doesn't matter how many records they sell. It matters that there are still records. And he's made some really good records throughout the 90s and 2000s and onwards. So if you hear him doing work, get it, because it's pretty good. It really is. He has found his feet. He does whatever he feels like doing, and that's the sign of an artist. He doesn't sound anything like the I'm and You Peter Frampton, I'll tell you that much. He is back to being a guitar player with a capital G.
I saw him a few years ago before he went off, pulled himself off the road to deal with his health issues, and he was on one of the casino amphitheaters here, and man, that was amazing. He was still got it, man.
There you go. Still got it. We just did a show on the rockers who still got it. And it was a fun show to put together. I'm going to go back to the 60s for a second. How in the Blue Blazes are Peter, Paul, and Mary not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I am floored. Who had more of an influence on the folk scene in the 1960s than Peter, Paul, and Mary?
And they
from everything to Leave It on a Jet Plane to A Mighty Wind, they had influence, right? I mean, seriously now, how many people got into folk thanks to Peter, Paul, and Mary, or at least the folk rock sound of the early 60s? Incredible that they are not in. You explain it to me because I can't.
I think this is a criminal oversight. This should be something that should, I mean, they have these subcategories here in the Rock Hall that again, there's one called the musical influence that could easily they have fallen into because just again, time moves on and we forget sometimes just how impactful an act like Peter, Paul, and Mary were. I mean, you can go back and think about that stuff, from the civil rights era and beyond. I mean, they're not just a group that you saw on PBS every once in a while when they did the public television raising funds, those are fun specials as well. But there's a lot of history to them, and they even decided to even poke a jab. Their pop hit, I Dig Rock and Roll Music. I mean, so they had a sense of humor as well. But again, their influence should be considered right along with even with your Woody Guthries and your Bob Dylans and stuff as people who moved the needle.
The mamas and the papas.
Bingo.
Right? Another influence. I mean, on and it went. I had the privilege of interviewing Paul Stuckey back early in my newspaper career in the early 80s, right? And I remember we had a nice conversation at the end. I said, Paul, I just want to thank you. And I just want to say one thing editorially from me to you. Thanks for never selling out. Because these people never went on to do floor wax commercials, and, and anything else to just keep them in the forefront. They did what they did. They never changed their sound, even individually on their solo records. They never changed what they did. And I think pop stars have a tendency to get cast aside, even folk rockers like they were. But in their era, in front of huge crowds, the three of those voices melding together. Check them out. I guarantee you there were people listening to the show who never heard them. It's so long ago at this point. But they were so influential, and I don't get this one. I really don't. Of all the people on my list, I think it's the most damning omission that I came up with.
Criminal. It's music crimes right there. Again, influential. Yes, there's categories. You don't have to worry because they gave out a couple of awards this year for the influence. They gave out one to coming up here in 2015 or 2025. So I'm all losing my time here. 2025, Warren Zevon and Salt and Pepper. So I think you can kind of pencil in Peter, Paul, and Mary. And again, that could be another way to create awareness because, there's so many great documentarians out there and there's been a lot of film through the years. I'm sure you could probably whip up something of an awareness piece of even that era and put it together. Look, they had the Dylan biopic not that long ago with Timothy Chalamet that got some kids probably curious about the folkier side of Bob Dylan. Those early records, Why not? The time is right. They can make a good story, whether it's a documentary or Hollywood. They could have fun with it. And I like your mentioned going back to the Mighty Wind. Love that movie.
Yeah. Oh, it was fun. Classic. The Mighty Wind wasn't just funny; it was moving. That may be Christopher Guest's overall best of his feature films in terms of genuine pathos in that film. I thought it was really, really well done and funny as all get out. I love Christopher. I love everything he's done. So I don't know what to say, but I'm a fan. Also from the 60s, I'm not gonna do this one. I had them written down. I was thinking about the Monkees.
Me too. I had that on a side list as
Yeah, and the problem, as again held against them forever, is the fact that they were prefab. It wasn't really a band. It was four good-looking kids thrown together to make a comedy show on television, pretending to be a band, and then they actually became a band based on the show.
Mhm.
They toured and they actually played their instruments, and they were musicians too. But they got fed voice and heart songs and stuff like that, and they had their pop hits. And
Neil
I,
Diamond stuff as well. I
right,
mean,
I
and you had
don't
the
know.
Don Kirshner connection, with, the whole thing with the with the movie or the TV show as well, and the movie Head. I mean, people are still trying to figure that one out. Good luck.
I
That was a trip and a half, but
I like that movie. I'm sorry. I thought that was their snub at all the pop stuff. I thought it was, Zappa. Come on, please.
yeah, that's a good flick. It's just, again, first time you see it, it's like, but then you understand and appreciate the boldness and kind of get where they were coming from at the time, because where they were at as an act. I mean, the splintering of guys from the group and what it became later. I mean, they were down to two monkeys at one time, and even in the early '70s, they ended up doing a Boyce and Hart thing, I think, with Mickey and oh god, and Davy.
Yes,
So
they
I mean,
did. Very good minutia there. I give you your props. I remember that, and I fell on the floor. I said, "What are they doing?" I really didn't understand that, but yes, they did do that. That's a good memory on your part there.
well, they really tried to stretch the Monkees stuff out. I don't know if it was just label requirements, because there were records going into the early '70s.
Mhm. Yeah.
Before the whole thing, the wheels went off on it, and this was just, again, with the Boyce and Hart thing, this was a little something to create awareness. I think they did a Vegas thing for the most part. I don't know how big it was as far as touring went, but, anything to kinda keep it alive. But at the same time, though, the Monkees, again, that's again the power of influence as well, because it was a further it further capitalized on the music on TV sort of thing, where it was, it went beyond just the Ricky Nelson playing a song at the end of Ozzy and Harriet, to this created show about a band. They took influences from A Hard Day's Night. I mean, it was fun, and it was reaching the culture, and they hit the right spot for a period of time where, well, did it go 2 seasons? I mean, it was, again, like Star Trek, it was a shorter run,
Mhm.
but we remember it so much because it was the conditioning of syndication. Think about the Monkees. Monkees were probably forgotten. They probably were on some UHF channels every once in a while until the mid 1980s. MTV spearheaded that whole Monkees Are Back thing by putting the show back on, playing reruns, and the band reformed for a while. They did the reunion thing. They even put a record out. That was crazy. But just how people took a hold of it, it was the boomers' kids that were getting turned on to this, these episodes of the Monkees, which was just absolutely crazy. But that's what I can remember. I remember watching it on, when I was in my preteens, on the reruns, and just falling in love with the group, and just how fun it is. And apparently, I think, what was it? A wrestling connection. Wasn't Nick Bockwinkel on an episode of the Monkees?
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. I forget what he played, but he was yes, he was. Nick Bockwinkel was on the Monkees.
So I could see there being a place at the table for the Monkees, just because of the visual. Maybe you can almost do a visual thing as well to go. I mean, more so because of what they did bring in their legacy to the screen, not just for music, but the Boyce Hart, Neil Diamond stuff. I think there was some, oh gosh, Carole King did some writing as well, and her husband at the time. So there was a lot of really good energy coming out of the Monkees camp music wise, because they went back to the Brill Building and having that Don Kirshner connection. So I think there is a place at the table for the Monkees, but probably in a side category, but of one of influence.
I will put a capper on this by saying this. I said this a couple episodes ago. If Mickey Dolenz and his band come to your town, go. Seriously. As someone who was never a Monkees fan, I had the privilege of seeing a full concert with Mickey Dolenz and his group It is way better than it has any right to be. You will go in thinking it's just gonna be a slogged together oldies thing.
Mhm.
It was warm, he had great anecdotes from the old days, and he's such an amiable fellow that you can't help but fall in love with a guy at his age. He's
Mhm.
still out there doing it. I give him all the props. If he comes to town, go see Mickey Dolenz, you will not be disappointed. I'm saying, and the band is so good, it makes up for any aging of his voice or anything like that. I just think, he's cool. He's a cool dude. I go see him.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Now, we're gonna get me into one that I think we're gonna both be Mutual Appreciation Society on, perhaps.
All right.
We're talking about a group that I know you've mentioned, and you've had a show that you've centered on and focused on this group. This is a group we talked about. You've mentioned about they're back. They got their name back. They're going to be doing a cruise next year. I'm talking about the Guess Who. I'm talking about Randy Bachman. I'm talking about Burton Cummings, even Chad Allen preceding it beforehand, and all the various lineups that came post Randy Bachman into the years, where we ended up with Dominic Troiano, lots of Kurt Winter before that, Greg Lescue, lots of good stuff. This is a band that has been woefully neglected for many years. This is, again, I don't know what the deal is. Why do they thumb their nose at the Guess Who getting into the hall? Do they have to do the Guess Who / Bachman Turner overdrive? What's the story on this?
Would it
This
yeah,
like a
would
treat off night.
would they rather induct Bachman and Cummings as a songwriting team? I don't know what they'd have to do. But think of Randy Bachman and Burton Cummings and how many hits they were responsible for in their 2 bands, the Guess Who and Bachman Turner Overdrive. It's insane. It's insane the level of success they had, but it's more than that. They were so special to Canadians and the Canadian music industry as the first band to kind of break into the States ever and really kind of take over.
Mhm,
They weren't British, they weren't American, they were Canadian. You didn't hear of it in 1968, 1969. They were so influential in Canada, and that's a big country, and they never get their props for that. They kinda opened the door for Rush and Anne Murray, you name it. Whoever came out of Canada at that point, they all pointed to Guess Who going, "Yeah, they were the fathers that let us in." And, yeah, we're not even talking about the music and the different varied the Guess Who were very strange in that you couldn't say what they were. They weren't metal. They weren't hard rock all the time. They sang ballads. They would do weird jazzy stuff on their albums that people would go, "What's that?" But overall, the level of musicianship and the astounding vocal proclivities of Burton Cummings make them just a tremendous, tremendous part of rock history, whether in the Rock Hall of Fame or not. I'll rest my case on that one.
mhm, mhm. The Guess Who, for me, growing up so close to Winnipeg, that it was a presence. Even being from a younger generation, heard so much of their music. And, the Guess Who, such survivors. And think about it. If the Guess Who, they went over, it was before all the hits. They ended up, they thought they were going to have this big break over in England. They ended up taking a loan. They ended up getting all this equipment, all this stuff. And they thought they had this record deal lined up. And they went over there and they realized that it wasn't a bag of dreams, but a bag of, you know what I mean? And
Right.
they ended up having to scratch and survive and get themselves back back to Canada. And then let alone once they were back in Canada, they had to find ways to pay these debts off, and they were doing shows, and thankfully, the Let's Go program on CBC, they were able to secure that spot in Winnipeg, and have Chad Allen was, hosting the program too, which was kinda crazy, their former frontman, but a group that almost didn't make it, from a bad experience in England and how they bounced back, and that was even before These Eyes. Think
Mhm.
about that. Think about the road they went on beforehand with Chad Allen and The Expression, and the Chad Allen and The Reflections, all that stuff, and even Burton and the Debrons. Think about all that stuff, all these pieces, if it didn't all fall into where it fell into.
Well, not only that, but the fact that they had to name the Guess Who, which was a radio promotion name, just Guess Who.
Mm,
When they 1965, they put out Shakin' All Over and Scepter Records in the US and Quality Records, I think, in Canada, and it just said, "Guess Who?" question mark. They wanted people to think it was a British act because they wanted the record to get played. They thought it was a hit record, and it worked, but then they
mhm.
were tarred with Guess Who as their band name from that point forward, and none of them liked it. If you ask any of them, they're going, "This is not what we woulda named the band." And of course, that created friction with the literal friction with the who were around first. And it's just, and yet, despite all those flubs and odd decisions, they persevered. And I think it was the songwriting acuity of Bachman and Cummings, and I think it was the remarkable instrumental capabilities of all four of the original members of the Guess Who, which were bass player Jim Cale and drummer Gary Peterson. These guys could play. They could play everything from jazz to hard rock, and people finally found them. And, between, I guess it was 69 and 74, 14 top 40 hits in the United States.
Mhm.
You can't sneeze at that. They were a big deal, and they continued to draw well in concert, and people don't even remember that, but it's true. They had a period between, I'd say, 71 and 73 where they didn't have any top 40 hits in the States, yet they were still drawing as a concert act.
Yeah.
Because Cummings had this kind of Jim Morrison, like, punky, funky, their shows were free form and, weird songs like Trucking Off Across the Sky where they would jam for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
They were a very unique band, and, they didn't even announce their names on stage. Nobody knew who Burton Cummings was, that name, but they just knew that the Guess Who were something special. I don't know. They should be in. They should have been in 30 years ago. I don't get it.
And now, not being, again, you talk about not announcing their names and all that on stage. That could almost have been to their detriment, though, towards the
Yeah.
end,
Yeah.
especially when, in recent years and decades, with Cale and Peterson kind of taking over the name and kind of the, going out on the road with their own version of it. That was one of the things, Burton and Randy were one of many acts are starting now to call out the misdirection. Where you're putting up the Guess Who are coming to town and you're putting in the ads on TV, you're playing the music of the old Guess Who, and you're sometimes even on the ads, you have pictures of the classic band members. So again, creates a lot of confusion.
Right.
Sometimes people are going to buy these tickets, who are fans, before, a lot of times, sometimes people don't do their homework as well. And that happens. You see a group's name and back then you jump on it, and then you get there and you see that, wow, I didn't know, Randy has long hair and 15 years younger, or, who is this and who is that? I mean, it's not a knock on the musicianship. It's the way you're presenting yourself. It's almost a form of fraud.
And the fact that one of the original members of the band was behind it made it all the more achy. It just felt bad. But I will say this. I recommend for anybody who never really got into the Guess Who, there's one thing I recommend. And I just sent I swear to you, this week I sent a copy just to a friend of mine. Get a copy of the DVD of the Running Back Through Canada tour from, 2000, 2001, whatever it was.
Yep.
Get a copy of that. And you will shut it off and go, they were a really great band.
You know
Because
what?
they were a really great band. That is
Bob,
an amazing performance on that DVD. And there's some outtakes, there's some scenes from them practicing and stuff like that. If you never knew who they were, that would be my primer to hand to somebody. Oh, you don't think they're a good band? Watch this.
give that a go, man. Hey, here's the fun fact. I was at that show.
Are you serious? The one in Winnipeg?
Yeah, I was at that show.
Wow.
When Mother Nature came in like that,
Mhm.
oh yeah, it was a nasty bunch of rain flew in there, that set things set the time. They took that break for a while, and again, a testament to the fans. Pretty much everyone stayed around. They found a little play. They took a little shelter. Everyone's a little tougher up there in the north, up here in the true north. They were like, it was an amazing show at that ballpark, and in fact, I was able to see. I think it was some Manitoba celebration a few years ago. It was the year after COVID or whatever when things broke out. They were originally going to have it in 2020, a free concert with Bachman Cummings. So they ended up the year after bringing it to the ballpark where we saw them in 2000. And it was a show I think I paid maybe $10 Canadian to go in there and sit and watch music all day. And they were the headliners. I think it was them and Tom Cochrane of Red Rider fame. So that was
Right.
You couldn't get any more Manitoban than that vibe. But they were on that night, and I mean, they're amazing. It's just amazing how those guys, Randy in his 80s and Burton, he's coming up
77, I think he is, yeah.
77, yeah,
Mhm.
and how good they sound, and and Burton, and Randy, again, you're not going to see him doing guitar heroics running around. He's in his chair, but man, what he does with that guitar still is amazing. He was the guy that was the measuring stick back growing up in Winnipeg that guys like Neil Young even looked up to.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, on a Saturday night, even at their advanced ages, I just saw Burton Cummings a few months ago here in New York. That is the ultimate Saturday night rock and roll show. It feels like Saturday night, even if it's not Saturday night. Every song a hit, you'll know every song but 3, right? You'll go in not knowing what to expect, and you'll go feeling like you're 18 years old again. I swear. And let's give a tip of the hat to the Carpet Frogs, their backup band. Awesome. They're a great band.
They
That's the
sure
thing. They are exemplary musicians, every one of them. It's far better than I can even express. And if it wasn't good, I wouldn't say this on the air. You know, it's just good. They still got it, and that's very pleasing to me as an old time fan. First
yes.
record album I ever bought was Rockin' in 1972. So
Ooh, that's a great one, man. And
yeah,
I got a chance to see. I did Burton's 75th and 77th birthday shows because his birthday's on New Year's Eve.
wow, that's
How
right.
rocking is that?
Yeah, yeah. You got more for me? You got more? We better speed it up. I got a few more I want to go over, and give me another one if you got one.
Oh boy, let me see what I got here for you. Ooh, I'm looking here. I have one. I am gonna go with a group that was met with a lot of tragedy. They were they were predestined. I mean, when they got signed to Apple, they were the Ivies. They morphed into Badfinger. They got the ultimate rub of Paul McCartney writing a single for them that came up gangbusters called Come and Get It. This band put out good stuff. People forget that the song Without You was a Badfinger song. Everyone thinks it's Harry Nilsson because Harry did such a good version. But Badfinger had a run of songs that you'll still hear on radio today. You'll still see on television shows like Breaking Bad and things like that. Pete Ham and Tom Evans met unfortunate ends due to the byproduct of a music industry that was so destined to chew them up and spit them out. Their lack of dedication to the promotion of this group. I mean, these guys were basically on the road working for peanuts and then having the peanuts basically taken away from them. I mean, this was a group that has a lot of tragedy, but had a hot run of music in the 70s, had a good run of stuff that was, if you wanted a continuation of a Beatle influence in the 70s, it wasn't just Electric Light Orchestra. It was Badfinger. And Badfinger was very much a power pop thing, because, when you think about it, they talk a lot about Big Star, Alex Chilton's band. That gets a lot of critical acclaim. I think 3 power pop bands would be Badfinger, Big Star, and get this, the Raspberries. So the bridge between the Raspberries and Badfinger is Big Star. So you listen to those 3 groups together, you can detect the genius there. But I think out of the 3, and yeah, I'd go with Badfinger. That's a group that, again, tragic story, and we just lost Joey Mullen here this year. But what a fantastic band. Listen to Badfinger.
I think they early on had a similar thing that the Guess Who did with the name The Guess Who. Do you remember Come and Get It? People thought that was the Beatles.
Yep.
And
Well,
they insisted that it was. Even though it said Badfinger on it, people for some reason, right? Do you know more about that story? Because I know people thought that initial single was actually the Beatles under a different name.
Well, yeah, because again, you think about it. I mean, everybody was still so Beatle hungry, and when you listen to the mechanics of the song, it's McCartney all over,
Mm-hmm. And Apple Records too.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of things were pointing to maybe they're putting something out under an alias. They're going to be. I mean, this was the time too when they were putting little things into the songs. When the Beatles became that production machine, more so than a touring machine, and they were able to really stretch out what was the technology of the time with their musicianship. I mean, so I can see where somebody can maybe say like, oh, you're not going to pull the wool over my eyes. But on the Anthology Volume 3, there is a demo version of Paul doing Come and Get It.
That was such a huge hit. I was a kid at that point. That was a huge record. That record just took over the charts. It was played AM and FM, and it was big. They were good. I will second your motion on that one. I really will.
Do you think where they went content-wise, they did bloom a little bit more, where, say, another group that sounded similar to them, that had backing of another British group, The Who, I'm talking about Thunderclap Newman, if they would have had a little more material, they were in that sort of Badfinger trajectory too, that sound. If you listen to Hollywood Dream from Thunderclap Newman with Something in the Air, very similar to a point where instead of the Beatle influences, the Who influence, because Speedy Keen was associated with Pete Townsend.
All right, we've talked a long time now, almost an hour. Let's go. I'm just going to give you my picks in order here, just the last ones that we didn't get a chance to talk more in depth about. B-52s coming out of Georgia with a style, sound totally singular. 3 decades of hits. Come on, folks, please. How about Dick Dale?
Yes,
You
sir.
talk about an influence on other guitarists? Seriously? Right?
Absolutely.
Jethro Tull is almost a joke at this point. It's a long-running joke for Jethro Tull not being in. Talk about influence, progressive rock, King Crimson.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. Devo as well. Devo bringing a visual element to rock that was totally original for its time. And Devo, I just saw an SNL special when they were having their anniversary deal. And Devo changed the way that Lorne Michaels booked music for SNL.
Really?
Lorne Michaels at the time, I think it was 78 when they played, their version of Satisfaction on SNL. And I think Lorne Michaels said to somebody, "That's what I want in the show. I want more visual acts on the show from this point on. I don't want just a bunch of people playing. I want more visual musicians." So they had an influence even on Saturday Night Live.
It's kind of like the David Bowie, Klaus Nomi sort of appearance on there too, with the old mime singer Klaus Nomi. That was a very visual thing too. It was right around the Scary Monsters era for David.
Right.
I mean, again, it became more of a fun visual thing, and that was again another direction, another turn in the story of Saturday Night Live, at least from the musical standpoint. Because
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it was a big deal to Lorne Michaels. So, and again, who did that before Devo? Nobody. That much theatricality, in their performance. A lot of people picked up on that thing after that. So I give them their props for that. And I'm not a metal guy, but Iron Maiden, really? Not in? Seriously? Seriously? The influence they had? It's off the charts. Def Leppard, and Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, come on now. I was at a record store at those times. I can tell you how big those bands were. Please. And you know what? Oh, the Eagles are the fathers of country rock. No, they weren't. Poco was.
very true. Very true.
I don't care what anybody says. And Poco never really broke through until like 10 years after their debut or something like that in terms of chart success. But their overall sound, that merger of rock and country, was something unique for its time. And Rusty Young on pedal steel guitar is one of the great geniuses of all strings instruments for the length of history. He is a legend in that regard. He changed the way pedal steel was played. If that doesn't qualify you for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I don't know what does. So, and finally, a disc jockey. I think Wolfman Jack should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
That is insane. He's not in the Hall of Fame?
No, not that I know of. No.
Kidding me.
Yeah. If I'm wrong, I don't think I'm wrong about this, but I don't think he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in one way or another. And if he's not, he should be. If I'm wrong, somebody can correct me. I haven't heard. I researched it a little bit, and it kept coming up negative.
He should be in just on the fact of musical force of nature for all the things he did with the radio, the syndicated stuff he did on the radio end, the midnight special things, the way he kept himself out as a personality in the 1980s. He was promoting stuff. You hear that voice, you know who he is. I mean, you don't even have to be listening to it. As a kid, I knew Wolfman Jack. As a young kid, because he had the visual thing too. He knew how to do things.
He moved to show to New York City in the 80s. I remember that. Yeah, he was on in the late afternoons here in New York, and nobody liked him. I mean, he was funny too. He was just a likable weirdo. I don't know what else to say. He was. How did that get over? You don't. It wasn't the kind of voice you would fall in love with, but you did. He was a singular force, and his real name was Bob Smith.
Yes, I do.
Yes, you do. Of course you do. You know everything, man.
He did, he worked with the Stampeders on Hit the Road Jack. He did the Clap for the Wolfman song and Flash Cadillac and the Continental Kids. Did you boogie woogie baby in the back row of the movie show?
There you go.
Yes, good pick.
Yeah, put him in. If he's not, get him in there. And again, if I don't think we've made any errors in terms of who's not in, but if that is an error, I researched it as hard as I could. I could not find any evidence that he was in the Hall of Fame. So,
Okay.
do you have any more that you on your little list that you would like to give plugs to?
A little more modern, just because I'm going to go with a Canadian act who dominated the 80s into the 90s, got a little more into the softer side. But this man still packs international stadiums, believe it or not. Bryan Adams. There's a lot to Bryan Adams. I mean, we got to start thinking about these 80s acts. I mean, a lot of 80s acts kind of get the thumb. I mean, if it's not like some innovative avant thing or our visual medium type of thing, like your Duran Durans or something like that, some of these meat and potatoes groups or acts have got to get in. And Bryan Adams was a dues payer since he was a teenager. He cut his teeth in a group called Sweeney Todd. I think he was the replacement for Nick Gilder, of course, of Hot Child in the City fame. And Sweeney Todd was a pretty popular group up in Canada. He started doing solo records. One of his first singles was called Let Me Take You Dancing, and they sped the vocal up so high. He'd sing like this. And it's a little disco song, and you don't even know. I could have played you that song, and had you played Name That Tune, and you wouldn't have guessed it was Bryan Adams. But the way that, and I remember this, maybe it's as a Canadian bias growing up near Winnipeg, watching a lot of the more of the pop culture up there. But he was big. And over in England, he is huge. There's a lot of things. I mean, again, he gets kind of pushed to the side, with some certain songs were melted the ladies' hearts in the day. I mean, a lot of people probably in 1983 slow danced to Heaven at their prom. But those are songs that still have connective tissue. He does rock and roll. He paid his dues opening up for major live acts as a solo act. Bryan Adams, he's a dark horse. And a lot of people think, Glenn, would you pick Bryan Adams? Yes, I would. He's my dark horse.
He's another Bruce Allen protege, as I recall.
Absolutely.
The producer from up in the Great White North. And the first time I ever read Bryan Adams' name was, I believe, on the last Mercury BTO album called Rock and Roll Nights, where he wrote a song. Mm-hmm. They covered a Bryan Adams song on that last record. Did you know that for you?
He wrote a couple of Kiss songs?
No, I didn't know that either.
The song War Machine, it used in another pro wrestling connection. Taz and ECW, that was his pro wrestling. It was his theme for many years. It was War Machine. It was sung by Gene Simmons. But Bryan Adams actually did a re-recording of War Machine, his version last year. So you get to hear Bryan Adams doing the metal yell. It's kind of interesting to hear him sing that song. And then actually know that he sings, you better watch out because I'm a war machine. You think, I mean, I thought that was the guy that cuts like a knife. I mean, really.
Right. Yeah.
And I got Bryan Adams. I'm going to go with, again, I'm a little bit more in my gen. And I went and saw these guys recently. This was a group that's probably the closest thing to a 1970s rock and roll show still, as these guys are approaching their 60s. I'm talking about a couple of Georgia Peaches known as Chris and Rich Robinson of the Black Crowes. Their records, you listen, they came out the gate shooting to kill with Shake Your Moneymaker, which brought the cover of Otis Redding's Hard to Hand. You listen to that album from start to finish. Tight, consistent, good stuff. You move it into Southern Harmony and Musical Companion. They get a little looser. There's a little more of a hippier vibe. It's more of something you could probably see third on the bill with the Allman Brothers at Fillmore East, circa 71 type of sound. They were going more with that image. From their albums, Amorica, Three Snakes, One Charm, By Your Side. The 6 times that I've seen them in concert, love it. The sets were never the same. I love when they do that. It's like Cheap Trick. They'll have the core songs in the set, but they have enough maneuverability musically to not only have these great songs on these records, but they bring them out and road test them. And they are still out there doing it. They've had squabbles with the brothers for a few years. There's a couple years where Chris went Hollywood, where he married Goldie Hawn's daughter, Kate Hudson. But I still think in the midst of all of this, if I want to book a band to go on my bill on my Glen Festival, I would make enough money available in the budget to bring these guys in because they have connective tissue to not only just rock and roll, but they can also do a little bit of that Southern country style. I'm not talking today's Southern pop. I'm talking more of that Southern deep vibe where they were, again, little flavor of Capricorn Records back in the day. These guys wear their influences on their sleeve. Some may object because, there's a lot of things they're fighting became tabloidy and through the years, but I think I'd take those Robinson brothers over the Gallagher brothers of Oasis any day when consideration for Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Interesting. You said Capricorn and bang, bumped into my head, Elvin Bishop.
Ooh, that's a good.
He'll never make the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but if I was running it, he'd be in there. We'll put it that way. Between his work with Butterfield and all that other stuff, come on.
Mm-hmm. Forget it.
Yeah.
I'm going to do one more. Producer, Roy Thomas Baker. Roy Thomas Baker, you may be wondering. He was the man that produced the very first few Queen albums. Queen 1, Queen 2, Sheer Heart Attack, Night at the Opera, things like that. I mean, he did the Cars' first records, The Journey, did Ozzy, Foreigner. Why isn't this guy in the Hall of Fame, at least production? I mean, he was a wild man, but he got results. They talk about Mutt Lange and his sound. Roy Thomas Baker needs to be in that category, too. He had a lot of credits.
I'm loving this pick. I love that pick, man. I love that pick. And you know what? How about Jack Richardson, too?
Yes. Nimbus 9.
Poco, Bob Seger's biggest hits were produced by Jack Richardson.
And Jack had under his arm in his production house, Bob Ezrin.
Mm-hmm. What an influence on the sound of rock and roll. Seriously. Wow. It's great pick on your part because it opened up my mind to producers after that. And it's like, yeah, the producers mean so much. They mean so much in crafting hit records. You can't even put it into words. It's like, as someone who's worked with a fine producer in the blues genre, or an engineer, especially engineers too, it's like the secret people that make music. Great pick on your part. You opened my eyes on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had to end with a zinger on that one because I was thinking about it for quite some time since his passing. I was trying to think. Man, I went back. I looked at some of the things credits, and it was just I knew about the Queen stuff, but I mean. Cars and Journey and even early, he was doing like stuff for Alice Cooper. And I mean, this guy is, again, kind of gets pushed to the side of history. But I think we need to put guys like that in the hall because what he represented, Bohemian Rhapsody, the production of Bohemian Rhapsody alone. Think about the work that went into that thing, cutting, all that splicing, all the cuts, the takes, getting those vocals perfect. If that's going to be his Mona Lisa, let that be his Mona Lisa.
Here. I'm right there with you. Excellent job, Glenn. Overall, what a nice job you did on this one. I'm glad we got to talk about some people who need their props. What do you all think? Write to us at outdatedent. That's outdatedent@gmail.com. If we left somebody off of this list, let us know, or write to me on Facebook. I'm the Bob Smith that sings with B.B. King. Write to me. I would like to know who you guys think should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame too. I'll bet you can come up with people, and that Glenn and I will look at the list and go, "Yeah, they're right." Now, here's the thing with Hall of Fames: not everybody can be in a Hall of Fame, but our memories are our own personal halls of fame. And these artists that we all talked about meant a lot to us growing up and listening to pop and rock music. And we thank them all. And I thank Glen Braget for coming back to the show.
Anytime,
man. Just a great job. Fantastic. You do great work on 90.1, and I'm always proud to have you on here, man. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
So that's it for this one. Glenn, you got anything coming up you want to let people know about, or?
Hi, man. If you're listening, you can check out Pioneer 90.1 FM, radionorthland.org. It's on the TuneIn app. You can check us out on the Community Radio Free app. You can go there and find that. I am on late night, Friday night into the wee hours from 12 to 2 with Basement Rock. I'm also doing Glenn's Bag, which some days I come in maybe an hour or two before the show and with my ideas. I sometimes, it's whatever's on my mind, whatever format I want to do, I put it out. That's what's in my bag. That's what I'm digging at the moment. And I also do Wrestling Memories. That's the one on Sunday at 12. These are all in the Central Time Zone, by the way. You can check the website out. We do have replays of things, too. And I host a top 40 countdown on Friday. So I'm a busy guy, Bob. I'm a busy man, but I'm loving every minute of it. the fact I get to play music and I get to, be a little bit of a tastemaker for some people, whether it's new or old music alike, it's a pleasure and it's an honor, and I don't take it for granted.
Well, listen, we can't wait to have you back. I'll put it that way. And always a great show from a real radio pro. There it rhymes, right?
Hey, look at
Glen
you.
Braget and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Thanks, Glenn. Attention, Gen Xers. If you'd like to explore the era that appeals to you, look no further than GenerationXWire.com. The generation who grew up with the elite in entertainment, music, movies, TV, books, pro wrestling, and more finally has a one-stop destination for all their Gen X needs. From Aerosmith to Batman to the Killer Bees to the Twilight Zone, there's something for everybody at GenerationXWire.com. You won't find a more eclectic mix of pop culture content than at the leading website that specializes in the greatest generation, GenerationXWire.com. Check it out today. Well, that's it for another one. Before we sign off and do our usual thank yous and plaudits, I want to give a shout out to the people over the course of the last 3.5 years, whatever it's been that I've been doing these podcasts, that I rely on for my studio and my sound. I want to just give a huge, amazing shout out. Now, as you all know, I edit the thing myself. I take a great amount of pride. I used to be in music. I used to look at the sound mix too. But this has been a joy for me, and it wouldn't be half as good without, you know who you are out there. Thank you, guys. You're doing a bang-up job. I send the thing off. It's better than when I let it go. That's all I know. Sound means a lot to me, so thank you, guys. I'll talk to you all soon. You know who you are out there. Well, in any event, a wonderful show with Glen Braget. Make sure you check out his radio wares as well. Like I said, they're all over the dial up there. And Michael McCurdy, his co-host on the wrestling show that he does, check them all out. I'm going to get Michael on one of these shows too. He has a lot to say about a lot of things. Well, in any event, I have to schedule that. I got more things to do. Write to us, outdatedent, outdatedent@gmail.com. Our website, outdatedentertainment.buzzsprout.com. All of our episodes are there. You'll find a lot about rock and roll, a lot about television, all kinds of things. Game shows was our last one. Music, comedy. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up your way as well. So I'm having a lot of fun with this. We hope you are too. It's an adjunct to my other production, The Outdated Wrestling Hour, both part of Bob Smith Podcast, as we call it. And you can find us virtually every podcast app there is out there, and plus YouTube, if you prefer that. So we hope you had a lot of fun. We want to hear from you. Write to outdatedent@gmail.com. Tell us your Rock and Roll Hall of Fame snubs, who you think really ought to be in there but aren't. It's crazy at this point. I just say there should be more, what's considered rock and roll. I'm not snubbing anyone else, and I'm not going to damn anyone else for being inducted. It's all in the eye of the beholder. Thank God we have music, though, right? Seriously. And music like Ringo Starr, who still performs and records to this day. At the end of every show, he puts his fingers in a V and says, "Peace and love, brothers and sisters. Peace and love."